Prices of goods and services have doubled after President Bola Tinubu announced that fuel subsidy is gone. A visit to Sabon Tasha Market in Kaduna shows that patronage has reduced because of the hike in transport fares. Traders say things are more difficult now. Uncertainty looms, and it's unclear how they will navigate through these tough times.
Before they remove subsidy, about my pocket full money like this, understand? I get back my way I put money where they used to put money, but now I no bring the back because my pocket must save no full. But now there is no more market because of the highest price.
I'm here to buy a jeans trouser, and the price before is around 152,000, but now it's like 3,035. Seriously. And with this, I don't think we can purchase things again in the market because of the price.
They affect the business. The business is not moving. Everybody they complain. Kilo of shower 1, 2. And if you tell customer kilo of shower 1, 2, they will ask you shower. And not everybody they eat shower before, but now, if you know they eat shower, you on your own. Sardine kilo 2,200 from 39,000 to 45,000 carton. So, that's what we see them.
They want the government to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal to help alleviate their sufferings.
Because of the removal of the subsidy, it's not been easy with customers. As you can see, since morning we've been sitting down here, not even one person has come to patronize.
Premium motor spirits now sells between 540 and 550 naira per litre in Kaduna State. Motorists are lamenting. Commuters are now scarce, all because fuel prices have been adjusted to reflect market realities.
What I'm telling government, this price is too much. It's too much. At least they should consider and put it maybe 300 naira. It's somehow that somebody want to go and see his family in Abuja or Kaduna. You tell him that he should pay 6,000 naira. For rich people, it's okay for them. For the masses, for the poor, it's very bad.
The removal of the fuel subsidy might contradict what President Bola Tinubu aims to achieve with his promise of economic prosperity and peace. The increase in the cost of fuel is bringing about inflation and is having a ripple effect on every sector of the nation's economy. Oga, from here to Rigasa is how much? Or Kariji?
Okay, from here to Rigasa is 500 for golf. For Napep is 600 from here to Rigasa.
From transportation to the cost of goods and services, everything has skyrocketed. Nisi Gabriel, Arise News.
Everything is hitting the roof. Well, and in what seems to be a deadlock between the federal government and the Nigerian Labour Congress, how can the nation avert this looming strike in an economy that's still struggling to catch up after the 2023 general elections? Who is right and wrong? What is wrong with the policy and its timing? What should be done to manage the policy and its outcomes? Arise analyst, Associate Professor of Law, Sam Amadi, is here to unlock this issue. Sam, prices of goods and services shooting beyond the roofs. Who is right? Who is wrong? Labour says Wednesday is sacrosanct. The federal government with TUC said no, we'll reconvene on Tuesday. There are demands on the table. Wage review is there. Palliatives for the workers as usual. But a lot of Nigerians, they don't seem to believe in these palliatives and the rest. They want more necessities of life provided.
I think you said who is wrong, who is right. I mean, this is like both sides seem to have some part of the reality. This afternoon I had a conversation with two of my sons. One, a recent graduate of economics, one, a final year student of law. The economist says that the one simple word, fiscal deficit. Look at the balance sheet. Government spend the money. And nobody should spend for consumption. Nobody should borrow for consumption. It's a word. The other guy said, no, think in terms of who bears the brunt. Think in terms of the poor. Think in terms of minimum wage. So now this is a two-picture coming in. The argument for subsidy has been very clear. If you're spending maybe 6 trillion, depending on some calculations, 10 up to 10. And in 2022, we spent, federal government had about 78% to service debt alone.
Yeah.
And much of these subsidy payments probably at a point we need to even borrow to sustain it. So there's seeming to be a compelling argument that, look, you cannot be spending 4 trillion now, maybe half a year, to just service
debts,
just to pay for subsidy, which about 40% is captured by those who can pay, the elites. So that seems to be the argument. The argument is simple: inefficient. This is inefficient in the classical economic sense of pricing below the, paying below price for a product, which in their view is not a necessity, which people can go without, which encourages outsourcing and smuggling to West African coast, where we seem to be paying. Now, the other side of it is this: 2 issues for the labor perspective. One, the reason why we're paying this, if you look at other OPEC countries, actually, there's a significant subsidy in their oil prices because they're below price. The reason is very simple: they are more efficient than us, they refine locally, and even when they refine locally, they have little cost for security, electricity, and so that. So the cost of refining of this product for value addition in terms of cost will be less. So if we had a refinery running efficiently and we have good electricity, good roads, we don't have to pay for security, you will see that probably the landing, the cost and the fuel cost of point of sale cost will be less. So the labor argument is that, look, we are outsourcing these inefficiencies to other countries. One category of people, the working poor and the unemployed. The second argument here now is timing. So first is that, yes, this is physical crisis for the country, but who should bear the cost? How do we distribute the cost? Okay, secondly, if you look at the minimum wage, interesting, Nigeria has the lowest anywhere in the world. If you look at minimum wage in terms of, people talk about the US, for example, we have fuel is about 300 something naira, okay?
Dollars.
No, if you convert to naira per liter. But again, if you look at minimum wage, this is like heaven. Now look at the senators, how much they earn. About $2 million annual. Whereas in the US, it's about $105,000 for average. No other country is even close to this. So it's about $112, $105. About this 2 points. So the question then is, if you have a country that has this asymmetry, inequality at high level, the minimum wage, annual minimum wage of a Nigerian worker is about 400,000 naira for a year, if you look at the minimum wage earner. That of a Nigerian senator is about 354 million. So this gulf is a gulf of trust. Why do we have to trust the government? Why do we have to ask the people to bear this cost? Okay. Now people argue around also the issue of timing. And the timing is, maybe you can phase it. So what we are saying for NNPC is, NLC is, look, first, who is receiving this subsidy? Who are we paying it to? We want disclosure. But the truth of the matter is that based on the reform now, NNPC is a sole importer. So unlike in the past under Jonathan, we are paying marketers for shortfall. In this time, NNPC imports and bears all the landing cost. NNPC only gives to marketers with a profit margin. Marketers sell. So what that means, therefore, is that federal government itself is the one who imports and is losing money directly. So NNPC debits the federal government those bills because they buy it and then they give it to marketers and give them a great profit. But with this deregulation, what NNPC is saying is that we are not going to, everybody go and import. So we're going to spend money buying. You import, you sell at market price. But people are saying, why haven't you properly deregulated that sector? The PIA has not been fully operationalized. That's the issues. And then the lack of, you heard Ajero talk about NNPC is a company. Now, NNPC status in this game, NNPC is a company, public-owned company. At the same time, there's a sense in which, what's NNPC's real, status? A company like any other company, or a sovereign company that probably people say all countries take some subsidies. Now, the economics of subsidy is, what kind of subsidy? A subsidy can be efficient in the sense that the beneficiaries are targeted, those beneficiaries use it in an economic manner. a subsidy like our own is not targeted because essentially everybody can carry it, including neighboring countries can benefit from that subsidy. So what we are seeing here really is a clash of, like my son, who the economy says fiscal
wrong.
Deficit.
Yeah.
This one is saying, what about distributional equity? Who should bear why should you saddle? Look at the people who heard on the story. Some of them are, by the way, civil servants, talking about wage. Now, we want to say minimum wage should be increased.
Yeah.
How many percentage of Nigerians are on the working in the formal sector? How about those rural dwellers who will have to make those trips, who will go and buy things? The inflationary trend of this increase is such that everything will go up. So the real problem here is, how would the new government continue to take this 3 trillion, 6 trillion payments? At the same time, how can they deal with a situation where many of their citizens will face huge inflationary impact? Many of them will be poorer. The impact of this in terms of poverty level will be more. People
it's going to go beyond the 133 million.
Many people are going to go to poverty.
Then what would the $800 million that the federal government has secured with the World Bank to alleviate poverty really do?
That's even a crime against humanity, because, by the way, it comes to 5,000 naira for about so-called 40 million households. 5,000 can induce negative behavior. You just buy a bottle of beer and pepper soup and I'm gone. So I think that the notion of palliative as cash transfer, what we know that cash transfers work where they are continuous and where they are coupled significant enough and they are coupled with some orientation. So people are giving cash transfer to start business, cash transfer to reflate their business. But 5,000 cash transfer to people at this point.
What business can they really start?
So essentially, the government needed to simultaneously, while doing this, roll out, for example, CNG can be used to drive some buses. Innocent has capacity to put. So if, for example, the government has announced, let's say, 3 of those buses for each of the state capitals, and Labour sees it, taking people to work every day.
3 buses.
Just example, 3 out of, let's say, each city in the country has a bus, let's say 3 for workers, just an example.
From Innocent Motors, that first will create massive employment.
Exactly, employment, and people say, okay, fine, at least we can wait for the state-owned free ride to go to work. If government has started putting in some of this palliative, even if government had the first day uses political capital inauguration to announce series of interventions, knowing that by the budget of the previous government, this is going to end by the end of June. So the failure, I think, now, which they have to battle to recreate back, is that it started with a jugular, a blow to the people, instead of starting first with what it would do to optimize and to reduce the impact. So what we are seeing here now is looking at 2 different balance sheets. The government is looking at its financials in terms of deficit. The Labour is looking at the balance sheet of the average worker, what they're going to spend. They take home 30,000, which is even being contested. Some states are not paying salaries. So we look at the inflationary trend, the impact of this of fuel. Fuel constitutes about 40% of cost of business for small and medium enterprises. So the economics of it are actually very difficult, because end of the day, it might lead to some kind of shrink in economic growth. It might still push back, it might restrain our recovery. And so it's not just about workers and people, it's not about business people, about businesses, consumption. They need to talk about no sales. People are now going to over-economize. So you won't go out, you won't make the necessary travel, you're not going to spend on health, education, you overspend on transport. I just
want to quickly take you back to 1986 during the structural adjustment program of the then military president Ibrahim Babangida. Can we, juxtapose that period, the kind of adjustments Nigerians went through then, tough, difficult, initially, but, Nigerians have a way of getting over it. And today's yes, Nigerians want the removal of subsidy because of its inefficiency, tainted with corruption and fraud.
Absolutely.
But they're just saying, the increase is gargantuan.
At one leap.
Yeah.
Secondly, you mentioned about SAP. We had this debate around SAP, whether it should have a human face. Aluko spoke about
absolutely.
the human face and they said there's no alternative. And then they said, no, there's even death, even has alternative. So primarily, this is the point. What did we achieve with structural adjustment program? It was part of a neoliberal agenda that resulted in collapse of education sector, health sector, because government were advised not to spend, deflationary economics. Don't spend on these social services. You need to pay attention to the macroeconomic stability. And so we are back to that. So if we are going to be focusing so much on the financials of government balance sheet, you will say remove subsidy now, all of them. Again, within that period, as part of the Washington consensus, we talk about shock therapy. Those who promoted privatization says, look, shock therapy. Don't waste. If you do it gradually, the political coalition against reform will rebuild.
Yeah.
What's the answer? Hit them. Now, the interesting thing that Geoffrey Sachs, then at Harvard and now in Columbia, I think, was one of those who promoted it. And later in his book, End to Poverty, he said, we regretted. We are so ideologically driven that we thought that one size fits all shock therapy. So people are saying, government has to be tough. No, toughness is not the secret of good governance. It's effectiveness and wisdom. The idea of shocking people with massive change at the same time creates a fight back. And what we're seeing
which
now
comes with great unemployment and the rest.
Crisis. This crisis shut down. Imagine if labor makes good is clear, is straight, and maybe reduce workers down to for 1 week. The GDP loss that can trigger. So the question is, isn't it wiser to have started with engagement? Wiser by laying out this plan.
Well, I thought that's what the government is already doing.
Doing rear guard, Monday morning quarterbacking. But the point is, it's better late than never.
Never. Right.
And so the question now is, government should first see those two balance sheets. The balance sheet of government in terms of what is spending to subsidize what we ought not to subsidize. Two, the balance sheet of the ordinary Nigerian who is going to face a heavy, perfect storm of energy spike in energy cost, spike in transport, food inflation is very high already. And so what this means is that the intervention should not be 5,000 for 8,000 or for 5,000 for 40 million households. Yeah. It should be something much more holistic. It's also something that's more protective of not just those in labor, but those who are not unemployed and rural development.
I'm sure a majority of Nigerians will prefer that $800 million is used, to drive our infrastructural growth and ploughed into agriculture and the rest to help production.
The difference is the time lag. The problem with investment in human development is time lag, infrastructure. The infrastructure uplift, maybe 3-4 years. Before that 3-4 years, the impact of infrastructure to livelihood in the short to medium term will not be that much. So there must be some good faith. People have to accept they have to suffer briefly. But to get to that point, government has to show good faith, reduce the budget of National Assembly. If the president uses executive order,
I was going to say, cost of governance, for example, very quickly. Yeah. Don't you think the new administration should downsize its workforce because of its humongous number? Look at America, for example. Federal workers are not up to 1/5 of what we have in Nigeria. Why we're having, the kind of workforce.
No, actually, economists have shown that our public sector is not large. What is large is that it's in the inefficient public sector. What are they doing? For example, you look at the ministry, 10, 20 drivers. What are they doing? So what I think they should do is to right size, but they should start with themselves. I'll give you an example. You can actually, the money that they spend on personnel and running costs at the villa and the National Assembly can actually replicate 4 National Assembly, 4 villa. So it's not just about the personnel number, it's about the cost centers. I give you an example. Every 4 years, you scrape the furniture and say you have given it to, you have monetized it. It doesn't make any sense. So I think there's need now for optics. The government should come down first to say we're ready to bear the bigger brunt of the challenge, then the citizens can develop faith. Because we need to have faith to take the short-term, medium-term sacrifice, and hopefully long-term we get there.
Thank you so very much. No better place to drop the anchor. Associate Professor of Law, Sam Amadi, and Arise Analyst.
Thank you.